For me, it's this epic lookout here that symbolises the start of tropical North Queensland and the beautiful Cassowary Coast.
Far out! How incredible are these views over Hinchinbrook Island? Here we are, the old Bush Telegraph Museum. We've been meaning to pull in here for years. I think it's well time for a mud crab burger and a beer. Cheers, mate. Here's to it.
Fellow councillors, staff and residents viewing via live stream, good morning all and welcome. I acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of the land on which this meeting is being held and pay my respect to the elders past, present and emerging. Any apologies? I already have listed Mr Goodman and Mr Fisher. Are there any further apologies? Okay, take that as a no. Move on to declaration of conflict of interest. Declaration of prescribed conflict of interest or declarable conflict of interest. Please use this opportunity to make public any prescribed conflict of interest or declarable conflict of interest in respect of the items in the agenda. Councillors should use this opportunity to disclose and or comment on other councillors and or staff interests in accordance with the Act and the regulations. Any conflicts to declare, councillors? Councillor Purban.
Yeah, morning, Mr Chair. Yes, through you, I have a conflict of interest in confidential report item number 6.3, and I notified the CEO a couple of days ago about this one.
Thank you, Councillor Purban. And you'll be leaving the room for that?
Yes, and I will be leaving the room for this item.
Thank you. Any further conflicts to declare? Take that as a no. Okay, we move on to the confirmations of the minutes of the previous meeting. Would somebody move that they are a true and accurate record, please? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Purban. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Any business arising from those meetings? Councillor Chewy.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Just would like to reach out to the community who supplied information for the stall that I had at the markets. It was well received. It was an interesting I spoke to everybody that came up. Of the people that I spoke to, there were 4 new couples that had moved to the Cassowary Coast, 1 to the Tully area, 1 to the Innisfail area and 2 to Mission Beach. And I think the stall was a good idea. I'm happy to do it again. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Chewy. Councillor Barnes.
Good, thank you, Mr Mayor. 2.2, a question for the CEO. Update on Port Hinchinbrook dredging and probably the sewerage while you're there.
Through the Chair, thanks for the question, Councillor. Look, the dredging of 1 Mile Creek, we've got federal funding and we're currently negotiating the terms of that funding agreement. So we're still working on that item. As far as the normalisation of Port Hinchinbrook, applications have been submitted for the federal funding for that process, and the state funding agreement is with us, and we're negotiating the terms of that agreement as we speak.
Any further business arising? If not, we'll move on to item 3, governance, environment and finance. 3.1, page 16, various policies, new and revised, and Ms Slattery will present this report.
Good morning, Mr Mayor. Good morning, councillors.
Morning.
Okay, today before you we have 1 new policy framework for consideration, a new policy. We have 2 revised policies to update and 1 policy to rescind. So the new policy framework is around our policy creation. So the framework is really just to puts a framework around how we structure our policies and how they are approved. And it's just to give the guidelines to the organisation. So in particular, we talk about planning policies, council policy and administration policy. So the council policies are really from a strategic nature, and the administration, which need to be approved by council. The administration policies are really more operational policies, and we have a CEO whose role is to drive the operations of the council, so that should be, you know, at his level. So it really is just to give clarity how policies are developed and the approval levels. So a copy of that is within your pack for consideration. A new policy is employee conflict of interest policy. It really clearly outlines to the organisation how conflicts of interest are identified, reported and managed to allow council to conduct its business with integrity, honesty and fairness. We do have a lot of this information within our code of conduct, but we had a recent QAO audit which is and the results have been previously presented to council, and on the back of that was a recommendation to have a separate employee conflict of interest policy. So that is there for you today for adoption. It's separate to councillors' conflict of interest. So councillors' conflict of interest, the language is declared and not perceived, prescribed. Whereas for employee conflict of interest, we talk about actual, potential and perceived. So it's different language and we deal with it differently. The complaints management, it's just an update. So we've got some more detail in terms of how we deal with officer conduct complaints, and also we've added a section in there about complaints around alleged corrupt conduct involving the CEO and referring to a separate policy. So there's just some minor updates there. The child safety and wellbeing, there's just some additional information around the Human Rights Act and the responsibilities of the CEO and EMT. And then lobbying and advocacy. The policy is, we've reviewed it and with council laws in a workshop, and we believe that there's really little value of this particular policy and are looking to rescind that policy. So the recommendation, if there's no further questions, I'd like to recommend that council adopt the policy framework, the employee conflict of interest policy, the complaints management policy, the child safety and wellbeing policy, and further that council rescind the lobbying and advocacy policy. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ms Slattery. Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair. So with the rescinding of the lobbying and advocacy policy, are we putting in another policy in place of that, or are we just taking that out altogether?
Yeah, we're just looking to take removing it in its entirety, not to replace it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Councillor Dewey.
Yes, through the chair. Just reading this, the word conflict of interest can sound quite daunting, and I'm just thinking if you're a new person coming to work at council, they might look at that and have a little uncertainty about moving forward. But if you could reassure people that in a small town, especially like ours, it's quite probable and likely that there will be conflicts because people know each other, people are on committees, people have family, close family members. It's about the management of the policy, of the declaration of the conflict.
Absolutely. So exactly what you said. We are a small community. Conflict of interest is inevitable. It's just making sure that we identify that it does exist and that we put proper controls in place to manage that conflict. So when we do our onboarding process with our new employees, we talk about that in depth because, like you say, it is quite confronting, conflict of interest. It does sound a bit negative, but it's not a negative thing if it's managed properly. So it's when we don't know about it and we don't put proper processes in place that's when it can be a negative impact on the reputation and integrity of the council. So we strongly encourage our employees always to be mindful of that, and they do have an obligation to declare. So,
thank you, Ms Slattery, and thank you, Councillor Chewy, for that summing up. Well done. Councillor Baines.
Probably just another question around, not a question, a statement around the lobbying and advocacy policy piece. At the moment, we don't see any great value in it to this organisation, but of course in the future, if lobbying picks up or if a lot of advocacy, a lot of development starts going on, there's no issues with reintroducing a policy.
No.
And we already have a model that's there.
Yeah, it's a good point, Councillor Baines. A couple of years ago, we had to have a lobbying register, and if a developer approached councillors, it had to be recorded in a register. The government have removed that requirement, and I can see the sense in not having this policy in place. But if the government of the day brought it back in, we'd have to revisit it for sure. Any further questions or comments?
Through the chair, I was just going to put a point of clarification there. That this policy was around councillors and the CEO lobbying the state government, not about others lobbying to council.
All right.
Yeah, that's right. And so if we have a lobbyist come to council, we still have to register. Yes,
okay.
they still have to notify us, and we still need to maintain a register.
Okay, my understanding was the register had been removed.
No, we still need to document that and have that internally, but we currently don't have any lobbyists on any register, so it's currently blank. But yeah, we still are required to have that in place.
Thanks for that clarification.
That's okay.
Okay, somebody move the recommendation, please. Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor McLeod. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 3.2, page 58, amendment of fees and charges, and Ms Bradley will present this report. Morning.
Morning, councillors.
Morning, Ms Bradley.
This morning we have our schedule of fees and charges and a few minor adjustments that we're proposing to make. So the current schedule of fees and charges for 21-22 financial year was adopted by Council on the 27th of May. As the year has progressed, council officers have identified a couple minor changes required to a number of those fees and charges in the current schedule. So the table in this report outlines what those changes are. Firstly, under planning, we have a particular fee that should actually read inspections on behalf of, so apologies for that in this report. It does actually read that in the current schedule. So we're proposing to increase the fee by $5 from $185 including GST to $190 including GST. This one particular fee was missed during the annual review, and then it aligns with the other inspection fees that council charges. The second and third item under planning relate to sewerage and septic charges for both commercial and dwelling houses. So we are just proposing a slight text change, so no change to the fee itself, but changing the text from reading 6 fixtures down to 5 fixtures. To be once again in line and consistent with the other fees that council charges in the planning space. And then lastly, under venue hire for Warina Lakes, once again just a text change in relation to hall and facilities hire, which includes the kitchen, cold room and barbecue. So removing the after 6 p.m. reference, so effectively charging a fee regardless of the time of day. As members of the community would then be accessing council facilities behind a locked door. So with that comes an added level of risk. The facility itself, which is a public space, is usable obviously free of charge during our opening hours. But if the community members want to access that additional behind locked doors, effectively kitchen, then the fee would be applicable.
Okay. Thank you, Ms Bradley. Any questions for the officer? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms Bradley. We move on to item 3.3, page 61, Audit Committee Report, and Mr Singh will present this report. Welcome.
Good morning all. Councillors, good morning again, and good morning to everyone else in the room. I have in front of us our Audit Committee report from last month. So councillors, the Audit Committee meets every quarter as part of our local government regulations, and part of the Audit Committee's role is obviously to go through the operational risk and control measures as detailed in our internal audit plans. And this morning we have the audit committee minutes from the last meeting, which discusses the matters that we discussed. So, councillors, the recommendation is for council to adopt the draft minutes, which includes the relevant matters discussed at the CCRC meeting held on the 2nd of September.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Any questions for the officer? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. We move on to item 4, planning services, 4.1, page 57, draft Marina Lakes Strategic Master Plan, and Mr. Jones will present this report with Mr. Horton.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
The council, the purpose of the report today is to bring the draft Warringah Lake Strategic Master Plan for endorsement. If council chooses to endorse the plan today, we'll then commence public consultation activities, and then also look to come up with a final plan and bring that to council in the coming months. So, council, we started this project back in 2019. We undertook the initial consultation. We had 68 submissions. From there, we've collated those submissions that we've got, and we've come up with this draft master plan with the help of LA3 architects. I won't go into all the aspects of the master plan, council, because it is available on our website. So the key ones for us were improving the usage of the Marina Lakes facility. At the moment, it's a bit of a hidden gem for Innisfail and the Cassowary coast. So it's also about raising that profile. Some of the projects that we've identified there, construction of a few new wetlands, that'll help with removing some of the hydrocarbons in the water table in that particular area, and also improve the environmental outcomes of that of Marina Lakes. We've also identified an area for a BMX pump track and also a nature play facility in that area, and a lot of revegetation, council. So the guys that look after that area at the moment for council do an amazing job, but there is a lot of grass to mow. So in accordance with our asset rationalisation policy, we need to look for a higher and better use of that facility, and we've looked at that through that re-veg and also providing those facilities. So, council, I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got them, or if Mr. Horton wanted to add a few words. No. All right.
Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, Mr. Jones, how are you? This has already gone out to public consultation once. Does this have to go out again?
Through the chair, council, the way we do it is we seek initial thoughts about these type of things, and then we'll do the draft from there, and then we'll take the draft out for consultation. So,
and would you say that this project's close to being shovel ready?
Through the chair, when this is a concept design, so from there we will pass it on to our engineering department, who will then look at the priorities and the implementation which comes out of this concept plan, and then with obviously further consultation with councillors in the state and the federal government in regards to funding, and then look to fund the projects and complete the projects from there.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Pervin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, morning, Mr. Jones and Mr. Horton. Question around this master plan. Master plans are very expensive, very high detailed. Would this be done in stages rather than try and do a whole? Yeah.
Through the chair, Councillor Pervin.
Would we look at doing like a pump track and nature play, first sort of area, dog off leash areas? Things the community want right now, rather thing.
Yeah, through the chair, this particular project, the concept design that we've come up, the budget for that was $20,000. However, you're right, once we sort of get past this point, we'll be looking at implementing the plan, which will involve a lot more costs. And as part of those, when the draft comes back in, we'll bring that to council, and we'll have a workshop with council about the priorities. And from there, we'll identify the priorities and also what comes out of the community consultation and what they want to see first. And then we'll be able to stage it using those information that we've got.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions for the officer? If not, somebody move the recommendation, please. Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor McLeod. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Item 4.2, page 73, delegation report and current applications, and Mr. Horton will present this report.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, morning, council. I hope everyone's well. I apologise, council. This is August report, which should have been due last month. However, I was away on leave, and I apologise for that. Council, so next council meeting, I'll bring the September report. Council working through on it through the total planning approvals for the month. We approved 23 approvals for the month of August, which is a nice figure for us. Looking at the 5-year totals on page 106. That's a nice little review there on that component. On page 108, Council, you can see the breakdown of those approvals. We had 1 operational works application, 4 material change of use applications, 6 building works, assessment planning scheme and concurrence agency was 12. So with the concurrence agency assessment, Council, that's usually your sidings, to your side boundaries, your rear boundaries, your front boundaries and those types of things to deal with sheds, carports, those in Class 1As as well, Council. So that's that component. Council, on page 109 for the month, we're at a total of 110 for dwellings, very much 16 above the total of last year, or the highest year over that 5-year period. Another 17 for the month, which is a nice total to have moving forward. So as we know, everyone's busy out there, and it's nice to see. Overall, the total approvals we've approved so far is 397 this year, which is well above the last 5 years on that. So overall for the month, Council, we had 68 approvals, $7.3 million worth of estimated costs on those approvals, bringing our totals at the current time, which is listed on page 112, Council, which is an overall total of $47.5 million of work at the end of August and $31.6 million in dwellings in Class 1A approvals. So nice figures to have around the Council. The other one really to have a good look at, Council, is on page 116, is our searches, building searches on housing and commercial and so forth, industrial development. We're 3 months ahead of the last 2 years' totals. So at the moment we're tracking at 347 at the end of August on total searches throughout the area, which is nice to see. There has been some turnover, and I hope it proceeds and get some more on the ground. So, how I have any questions, Council? I'm happy to answer.
Council, is any questions for the officer? So through to you, Mr. Horton, COVID is obviously giving some opportunities for Cassowary Coast in terms of investors' appetite, the number of new homes that have been built, and that's good to see. I note that the 11 blocks that were put on the market over at Aluart Street, Council Pervin, all sold. I think the 14 blocks of Council in Tully have all been sold, so there's a huge take-up by the general public in that regard. It's terrific.
Yeah, through the chair, there is a bit of development around, which we can see, which is nice. The beach has got some, the rural area, but also Spina's over there, which has been on the ground, I think, since 2009 near the cemetery. There's some new dwellings going up in that area. There's been a couple of slabs laid there and a few more to come. So it's nice to see it tick along with the asset that's been in the ground for a fair while. So it'll be nice to, for that to be finalised at some stage. Eddie Bay, yeah, we pretty much dusted that except for 10 lots down at Bulgaroo. So yeah, and Tully's looking positive as well. There's a few new dwellings going up around the place as well, Mr. Mayor and Council. So I suppose it's just the products, the costing, those types of things in the market at the moment. But look, the approvals still keep coming in, so we'll keep dealing with them and see where we go.
Yep, thank you for that. Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, Mr. Horton, how are you today?
Good, thank you.
With those blocks in Innisfail being that they've already all sold, does that developer have line of sight to maybe opening up some more, or?
Through the chair, we'll wait to see once we deliver the plan of survey and that development's fully constructed. At the moment it's in that construction phase, which we'll deal with the engineers, and hopefully we'll get that finalised as sooner than it starts raining. We'd like to see that done, and then from hopefully we move into another section of that development, which is we have the 48 lots that are approved on the river, and we're also aware that Council approved the 600 that are on the balance parcel of that property as well. So we look forward, and hopefully a few more stages, definitely.
Councillor Baines.
Well, and probably an interesting piece is that we're looking at the infill at the moment around a lot of significant infrastructure that's sitting in place. So I think that's another great move. I know there's an influx, and that's a great thing for our region, because of course we are the heart of the wet tropics and the birthplace of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, and everyone should come to the Cassowary Coast. But that infill with our existing infrastructure, I think that's an essential piece of this, and we're starting to grow into this infrastructure that's in place. So great work.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Any further comments or questions? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Purban, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks, Council.
Thanks, Mr. Horton, Mr. Jones. We move on to item 5, general business. Any general business items, councillors? Wow, hands going up everywhere. We'll start with you, Councillor Purban.
Yeah, can I just keep you there? Thanks, Mr. Jones. Look, I've only got one today. The wayfinding signs, I see they've been installed and they're up and going. They look great, Mr. Jones. One question some people from the community are asking me, the lighting around them, is it just the name that is going to be lit up, or are we going to have some spotlights shining up to actually show the signs that have been installed?
Thank you, Councillor Purban. If it's okay, I'll take that question on notice. I know there are a few contractual issues which happened towards the end of that project, so I'd just like to double check for you what exactly was the end sort of product which is being delivered, and I'll report back. Thank you.
Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, this is just more a general comment. On Tuesday, the Innisfail State College was the venue for the 2021 Cassowary Coast Careers Day. This event is proudly sponsored by the Cassowary Coast Regional Council. Over 320 students from across the region's schools, Innisfail State College, Tully State High and Good Counsel College attended. Students had the opportunity to explore multiple exhibitors, 30 exhibitors from across a variety of industries such as education, healthcare, social assistance, agriculture, local businesses, hospitality and the forces, to name a few. This event was put together with no funds spent, with innovation, will and allocated staff resources only. I'm proud to say the event received overwhelming support from exhibitors and the schools and the facilitators. The facilitators, Kira Jean Clark from Cassowary Coast Regional Council and Lisa Susan, the Transition Pathways Officer for Cassowary Coast Clusters, should be very proud of the successful day that they presented. The event would not have been such a success without the support of Connie Medley, Head of Senior Schooling, Innisfail State College, Jackie McAnulty, Guidance Officer, Innisfail State College, Mrs. Sarah Maley and the Student Council. If you miss this event, it is planned to be held again next year and our team is keen to make it bigger and better. If you'd like to be a part of this event for the next Skills Days, please contact our customer service team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Okay, any further general business? Councillor Chewy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Caramine Beach had a clean-up the other weekend. There were 28 volunteers who turned up. 450 kilograms of marine debris was cleared up off the 12 kilometres of beach. So it was a great outcome. It was really hot, but it was a great outcome. So well done. Tangaroa Blue are there to sort the debris and record the different items that were found. So obviously washed up plastics was a huge part, but there was also bits of boats and all sorts of things. So congratulations to everybody who took part. Now I believe, I think the CEO, I'm hoping, can answer my next two questions. I'm just wondering, Mr. Graffin, if there's any information on the Coda Street Bridge situation, please.
Yeah, through the chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor. A replacement bridge has been ordered, so the commitment from the suppliers to have that on site the first week of December. Council are currently calling for quotes for the installation of the foundations and abutments and the approaches, and weather permitting, we'd like to see the bridge installed prior to Christmas.
Okay. Thank you. And just following that, the shared path at South Mission, there was a little bit of angst about the direction which it was going. Have we reached a conclusion on that? Thank you.
Again, yeah, through the chair, look, the contractor's on site and works are underway, but council officers have been working with stakeholders to ensure that the alignment's complementary with current use. So there has been some adjustment to that alignment and works are continuing down there.
Okay, thank you.
Any further general business? Councillor Barnes, and back to Councillor Millwood.
Good, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to call on Adam. And,
Mr. Sadler.
Mr. Sadler, sorry. And while Mr. Sadler is coming to the front, I'd just like to give a report on a conference that I attended recently. Mr. Goodman, Mr. Fisher and myself attended the Public Works Engineering Conference in Cairns. It was very impressive with delegates from all over Queensland and, of course, businesses with their displays from all over Australia. We were given a tour of the current Cairns projects, and we were given many great talks and many great workshops. The highlight was the Cassowary Coast winning second prize for the Tully Grandstand in the $5 million to $10 million projects from all over Queensland. And I'd now like to present this to the Mayor, and I'd like to give a high recommendation to two people who are in the room at the moment, Dan Horton and also Byron Jones, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, sir. Yeah, Justin Fisher went up during the night and did a great spiel on the grandstand, and was very proud to receive that award. Also, we had many other great talks. We had a great workshop on talks on social media, and it was suggested that if council staff or council in general or individual councils mentioned on the social media in a negative way on social media, try and meet with these people face to face and see if their concerns can be addressed. And if they are genuine, they should be glad to help. That was just some of the outcomes of these workshops. Another great segment was on disasters, of which Queensland knows plenty about. And the Queensland Reconstruction Authority had the floor for a great period of time, and a segment on upcoming North Queensland house insurance study was spoke about, and other events were talks on master plans, and also communicating with employees and elected member workshops. A great segment was put together by Dr. Richard Harris. He was the Australian of the Year in 2019. Now, for those of you who do not know Mr. Harris, he was one of the divers who was called into Thailand to rescue the 13 soccer players and pull them out of the cave. And he spoke on how to handle disasters. And with his video and photos, you could have heard a pin drop in that room. I've got plenty more information about many of these segments later on. I was also very interested in hearing on the different ways to handle our unsealed roads, which is a major issue. And it was interesting to learn that all councils are having trouble keeping staff, accessing designs, acquiring products, etc. So it's not only us, especially when you get down around Mackay and Proserpine close to the mines. It was a great networking experience talking to those other mayors and councillors. Anyway, I've got plenty more information that I'll be circulating. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Very comprehensive report.
Oh, Mr. Sadler. Good, thank you, Mr. Sadler. Last week we opened Bells and Cardwell refuge tips. I was at Bells. It was working. They had a man stationed there for any issues. I stepped it through it. I ended up dumping stuff there myself. In Cardwell, when I attended there, it was working okay. The minute we left, all hell broke loose. Do you know what happened there?
I think that's on. Deputy Mayor, thanks for your question. So the automated waste transfer stations did go live at the beginning of the month and over the long weekend. And I suppose with any thing, there are some little teething things from time to time. So we are the only second local government in Queensland implementing the system, so it's new. In relation to some of our domestic customers and some of our commercial customers didn't receive their PIN numbers snail mail, I suppose, and our friendly waste transfer station officers have been working with about a bit over a handful of customers in relation to that. I know that there has been some little teething issues like that, and our team have been working with them. Some of those customers have been given a temporary number as an interim measure, and the team has followed up this week in relation to giving them their permanent numbers in relation to those. If there's still customers out there that are having troubles or difficulties, there's some fact-finding things on our website, but also the 1300 number, our customer service number, so 1300 763 903. There'll be a friendly customer service person there to assist them with anything that they do need. And I will say that there is a couple of YouTube clips and things like that to help our customers in relation to that. So yes, acknowledge and apologise to some of our customers out there, but it is just about a handful of customers out there that didn't receive their PIN numbers and things like that, and our team is working with those people as we speak.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Mr. Sadler. I'm still questioning the open and shutting. I'm still a believer, only me personally, it should just open at 9 and then shut at 3. And if you're locked inside, you hit the red button. This is what some councils do, and you got 5 minutes to get out or a phone. This open shut, like how does the caravaner get on? How does the person renting a house who doesn't have a property ID, and how does the contractor get on that's come to change the air conditioners at the hotel from Ingham? How does he get in?
Yeah, look, Deputy Mayor, thank you for that. We do have processes for all of those things that you raised. So for renters, there is a process there as well. And so we have asked the owners of the property to forward the PIN numbers. And if that doesn't occur, then the renter, there is a process that we do, and it's on our webpage in relation to how they can get access to a number to do those type of things. And in relation to commercial businesses doing business with us, that information is also on our webpage in relation to how they could do that. So if there are businesses out there that commercial businesses that haven't got a PIN number that do want to use those two facilities, please have a look at our webpage. There is a process there for them to interact. So ones that we do know that interact with us through our data from the past and historically, we have made contact with those and in relation to that. So we've used the best amount of data that we possibly have, particularly from a commercial sense, to connect with those and give them a PIN number. But if there are new ones out there, there is a process there to do, and we can connect with them and do that. So, does that answer your question?
Well, you never commented on opening at 9 and closing at 3, this open, shut, like, why can't we just leave it open?
So, Deputy Mayor, through the, I suppose, a couple of things we need to do. From a waste levy point of view, we do need to know who's coming in and who's going out. And just having the gates open doesn't control the safety matter either. So we need to know who's actually coming in, how much waste they're bringing in, and the type of things that they do bring in. And from a safety point of view, if we just have it open, anyone can just walk in there and walk out without actually knowing. We need to protect safety for not only our staff but also our users, and we do have a requirement, and I will add that closed-in footwear is an essential requirement in going into any of our waste facilities moving forward.
All right. Furthermore, on Landline, going back a few weeks ago, we saw the red African tulip trees. They've now woke up that when they're in flower, beautiful red flower, they're killing our native and European bees. And us in Queensland, we rely, 75% of our fruit and veggies that we consume as Queenslanders are reliant on natural and European bees. Now, I know red African tulips are a noxious weed. Us as council, would we be notifying Queensland government of our intentions to remove red African tulips, or is there a Queensland project in place?
You want to answer, Mr. Sadler or Councillor Millwood?
Sorry, through the chair, there is already a program in place with the state.
To remove them?
Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. So,
one more question.
Sorry.
Sorry, Jeffrey. One more question. Sorry, mate.
I can add a little bit more to what Councillor Millwood has spoken about. So at the local level with Natural Asset Management Advisory Committees, the NAMAC, and at FNQ level, biosecurity, local government, the management working committees are very aware of the African violets. It hasn't just come to our attention in the recent past. Cassowary Coast are already doing some works in that space, as are forestry. The part of the biggest problem we have is a lot of these trees are growing on private property, which then under the Biosecurity Act becomes the responsibility of the landholder. So there's advice now coming around about how to deal with these trees appropriately. You can't just cut a thing down and push it away, because they grow from nodes, they grow from the roots. The tree has to be killed while it's standing, and then it can be removed. Because there's something for the awareness of people. Don't just go out in your yard, cut down an African tulip tree and push it away, because it'll just spread and go spreading further. Biosecurity Queensland are more than willing to give advice. I believe our Cassowary Coast team would be more than willing to give advice. So I would encourage everyone, yes, we've got to be aware of it. It's very unfortunate that they kill bees. There's one fortunate aspect of it, is that they kill them before they get back to the hive and tell all the other bees where they are. But it's still something that needs to be addressed. We've got to get onto it and get into these. And I would encourage the state government, of course, to give us all the support they can.
Thank you. Councillor Baines.
Good, thanks very much, Mr. Councillor Baines. Lastly, question for Mr. Sadler. We've got a few issues that have risen recently. I think we need to rethink our roads programs. Now we've had council information sessions on this. Like, for a prime example, Blenner's Transport there now. They've just received a letter to say that the sealed road that goes past their workshop, council is only going to maintain to the first gate. Now that's a council road right past there and further on. Now, if we don't fix those potholes that are past that first gate on this sealed road, who does? They're not allowed to come on our land and work, as we've just mentioned about work health and safety. It is a registered road. It is a highly used road with 200 trucks in that workshop. That's only one example, and there's many more examples like that. I'd just like to hear your response.
Yeah, sure. Through the chair, Deputy Mayor. On routine basis, the asset team review our maintainable asset and road network, and there are road reserves that we do not maintain and don't have high utilisation either. And as you know, as the chair of infrastructure, that we have a hierarchy that we run through, and that dictates the level of service. I'm not aware of the one that the example that you've given me today, and I'm happy to take that on notice, Deputy Mayor, and work with the asset team in relation to that. But I will say that on a routine basis, the asset team does bring the maintainable network to council for adoption and for add-ins and subtractions, and I suppose I'll need to take that on notice and check with the manager of asset engineering in relation to where we are in that cycle.
Happy with that, Councillor Barnes? Okay, any further general business?
I was just going to, through the chair, I was just going to say exactly what Mr. Sadler had to say about Bells Creek and Cardwell transfer stations have been made automated, and while this is still in a very new transition, I ask that the public be patient with the teething problems, and any issues please be directed to our customer service team or the number that has been provided, which is the 1300 number. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to put in a quick report about the FNQ Regional Projects Forum that Councillor Millwood and I attended on Friday up in Cairns. It was a fantastic event. It was run by the Department of State Development, Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning. There were some real insights into some of the large and significant projects that are coming to the FNQ region. I would encourage our council to start pushing a bit more. We didn't highlight too much into the large brochure that was distributed, but I mean that's that's a part of work in our space. Probably one of the things that struck me most strongly, and I believe Councillor Millward as well, I am talking on your behalf now, but was the support that was being offered to local contractors and industries out of people like the Oz Industry, the North Australia Development Program, Regional Development, Queensland Regional Development Australia, and the Cairns Innovation Hub that do a lot of work around our region. I don't know if a lot of residents understand that Kelly's Aquajetting in Innisfail is the winner of a Cairns Innovation Award, and they do a lot of work within the region. So I would encourage any of our local businesses and contractors to either reach out to council directly and we can push you in the right direction. But I know that Oz Industry, Regional Development, and some of these other organisations have already started talking to. They want to come down, they want to talk to the Cassowary Coast. They're seeing the growth. We saw the growth in the planning reports this morning. So we're on their radar, and I would suggest, Mr Mayor, that we stay there and we keep it rolling along. So,
thank you, Councillor Baines. Any further general business? Councillor Barnes.
Just lastly, we were lucky enough to have a bit of a look at the Tully Van Park last week. They're doing a great job, those contractors, now that the weather's been a bit kind. And I think it's only a matter of time before the councillors are invited for an inspection. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Just a clarification, is that bulldozer you were driving still there?
No, it dried up.
It's all good, okay. Councillor Dewey.
Through the chair, just want to acknowledge on Friday we presented our Sports Bursary Awards. Councillors here at Millwood and Mayor Noel and Deputy Mayor and Mr Graffin attended. It was a great success. I congratulate all the nominees and all the winners. I think it was well attended. Also like to thank our officers, whose names escape me now, Miss Agley and Miss Hanson, beg your pardon, I do so apologise, for the work that they put in to make that event so successful. It was at the Tully Grandstand, which was obviously a great place to have it, and I hope to see more nominations and the success that it was this year again next year. So well done to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dewey. I concur. One of the best decisions this council made was to exit the North Queensland Sports Foundation and invest into local youth. And you saw the looks on the recipients' faces and, more importantly, the proud parents. We're investing in youth development now in Cassowary Coast, and it's been very well received by our residents. Councillor Millwood.
Further to the Tully Caravan Park, I too went and inspected that this week, and am proud to say that our team is doing a wonderful job down there. It looks amazing. A few more bits and pieces that need to be tidied up, but there is an update coming for the public to view very shortly.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Any further general business? Okay, I'm going to read a statement. This is a statement from the Mayor, correction to previous statements made about legal proceedings. On behalf of my fellow councillors and council, I would like to take this opportunity to provide clarity and correct previous public statements made in relation to legal expenditure reimbursements. Of particular interest to the community is a defamation case initiated in 2017 between Council's recently retired CEO James Gott and Paul and Julianne Toogood. On 7 December 2017, Council resolved to indemnify Mr Gott for the costs of his legal representation in pursuing these defamation proceedings. The matter is of public interest and has certainly always been my and Council's intention to provide transparency to the community on this matter when the time was appropriate. In early 2020, Council was cautioned by District Court Judge Morzoni, QC, about making publications that might prejudice the interest of justice in the criminal trial involving Paul and Julianne Toogood. As such, since that time, Council has complied with this cautioning and declined to comment further in relation to ongoing court cases involving the Toogoods. I have spoken at length to my fellow councillors on the matter, and we all agree, now that the criminal proceedings in relation to the Toogoods have concluded, it is appropriate to provide clarification to our community regarding previous statements made by Council on legal proceedings and insurance reimbursements. In September 2019, the former Council released a statement advising our insurance provider would cover legal costs associated with the defamation proceedings. Since the above statement was released, further comments have been made by Council reflecting our costs being covered in accordance with the usual terms and conditions of our policy. Council acknowledges that the statements and comments released were inaccurate to the extent that it would have provided greater accuracy had that statement and comments stated, quote, "Our insurers are partially covering the defamation matter." The reason I say partially is that there is no insurance cover for the initial action brought by Mr. Gott. However, there is insurance cover for the counterclaim made by the Two Goods against Council employees and councillors. It is my understanding that no statement was made knowingly or recklessly with this omission. On behalf of Council, my fellow councillors and the previous Council, of which I was a part, I would like to apologise for the inaccuracy of the statement made and any confusion it has caused. I trust this information has provided some clarity to the community. As a number of legal matters are ongoing, Council will provide further updates when it is right to do so. I do want to highlight that Council is obliged, the same as any other organisation, to indemnify its councillors and officers for claims against them arising out of their employment or election. To that effect, at a local government meeting on the 28th of February 2019, Council adopted the provision of legal assistance for employees and councillors policy. This policy is designed to protect the interests of individual council members and employees, including past members and former employees, where they become involved in legal proceedings because of their official functions. This policy is available on Council's website. I have instructed the Chief Executive Officer to prepare a report for Council to provide further clarity on legal matters afoot. Okay, that brings general business to a close. We now go into confidential, and the reasoning to go into confidential is item 6.1, page 117, amendment to the information security policy. Item 6.2, page 128, outstanding rates and charges. Item 6.3, page 133, register of pre-qualified suppliers for plant truck hire. Would somebody move that we go into, we close the meeting to the public, please? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, would somebody move that we reopen the meeting to the public? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And we also reopen to live stream. Hand over now to Mr Wilson, who will present the report amendment to the Information Security Policy, and this is on item 6.1 on page 117. Mr Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good morning, councillors. The report in front of you actually identifies a minor change to our information security policy to improve council's overall security posture. It is therefore recommended that council adopts the revised information security policy.
Thank you, Mr Wilson. Any questions? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor McLeod. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 6.2, page 128, outstanding rates and charges, and Ms Vick will present this report. Welcome.
This report is presented for council information regarding the status of sundry debtors and the rates and charges to the 30th of September 2021, or as otherwise stated. An update regarding legal action was provided also, and recommendation that the report be received and noted.
Any questions for the officer? Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to item 6.3, page 133, register of pre-qualified suppliers, plant and truck hire. And Mr Vick will present this report, and Councillor Pervin is leaving the room as a previously declared conflict. Mr Vick.
Good morning, through the chair. This report is for the register of pre-qualified suppliers for hire of plant and trucks. And it is submitted to council that the council accept the register of pre-qualified suppliers and for the period listed and for all suppliers listed in attachment 1 of this report.
Thank you, Mr Vick. Any questions for the officer? Councillor Barnes.
Yeah, sorry, Mr Mayor. One question I should have asked earlier. On page 134, it states an extension options were introduced to reduce the administration. Now, if on a 12-month period. So yes. When you do give these truck contractors an extra 12 months, they have the opportunity to readjust their hourly rate?
Through the chair, yes, they do.
Yeah.
So with the hourly rate, they can also adjust any equipment they require. So there may have been some old equipment they've disposed of and purchased new equipment. So they've got that opportunity.
If they buy a new truck, they have the ability through this term to come back with a, say, hypothetically a higher price.
Yes. Yes.
Any further questions for Mr Vick? Somebody move the recommendation, please. Moved by Councillor Barnes, seconded by Councillor Millwood. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Declare the meeting closed at 10:25.